Good afternoon and welcome again to the webinar. It's approximately 1:02 Mountain Time, so we will begin. First, just to start us out, I'd like everyone to answer the question, what organization are you representing today, in the question and answer box. Throughout the webinar, if you have any questions for our panelists, or for our presenters, or for myself, please feel free to use this feature. We will also have a question and answer section at the end of the webinar where you can raise your hand and we can unmute you to pose your question, or feel free to use this box. So I'll give you just a few moments to locate the question and answer box. I see a few rolling in. We have representation from Seneca Nation, some from Oregon, Muscogee Nation, and thank you all for logging in and joining us. It's going to be a great presentation. So today we are joined by Hope Husky, the Associate Director of Sequoia Fund, and Fern Ori, the Executive Director of Wisconsin Native Loan Fund. And without further ado, I am pleased to welcome Hope to the partnership discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everyone. I am with Sequoia Fund. We are a native CDFI that is located in the western part of North Carolina. So we serve the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians and the surrounding counties. And my main role as Associate Director is to facilitate our programs. And back in 2013, we were really looking at how we were serving the youth in our community. And we decided we wanted to get a little bit more involved in financial literacy. We were doing quite a lot of things around entrepreneurship. And because we are a gaming tribe, we felt like there was a larger need for financial literacy education. So next slide. So we're kind of looking, and we saw this report from the Journal of Children in Poverty about children with bank accounts and how those bank accounts can impact them later on in life, help them go to college. It helps with their financial habits as they become adults. And we knew kind of at that point that we really wanted to create some sort of program that would help our children in our community start saving. So we started looking at different models, and right off the bat we knew that we wanted something that gave the children and their parents some flexibility. We wanted them to have accounts that would kind of mimic how a savings account works in real life, meaning that sometimes, yes, you're saving for a goal, but if things happen, you can go get that money. And this was kind of twofold. One, that made it seem more realistic to us, and also we didn't have the staff really to manage a big IDA program or something more traditional like that. So we wanted a little bit of flexibility and something a little less traditional. Next slide. So what we came up with is this basics that you see before you, that what we would do is have youth open accounts. We would seed those accounts with $25, and then we would ask that the youth deposit $5 twice a month on scheduled deposit days. If a child made 10 scheduled deposits of $5, they would receive an additional $25 into their account. And what that meant overall for the program is that at the end of the first year, a kid who follows exactly would have $100 in their account, 50 that they had saved themselves and 50 that had been provided by Sequoia Fund. Next slide. So we had our model and what we wanted to accomplish, but we couldn't do it on our own. First of all, we don't take deposits, and then we just don't have a bunch of kids running around that we could help teach financial literacy to. So we really needed to look at what organizations could help us make this program a reality. And one of the first places our mind kind of went was we could work with some local sports teams. And there's a lot of kids there, and sort of get them thinking about savings. But ultimately what we decided was that those types of organizations maybe didn't have the same goals that we had, and some of the momentum and some of the encouragement of savings could get lost. So we really wanted to fine-tune and find people who knew exactly what we wanted to do, and they had the same goals in mind, and that being building these kids' future through financial literacy education. Next slide. So what we came up with was that we would work with a school. And in our community, we have a tribally owned school that is a language immersion school. It's just grades K through 5, and that school stresses the importance of community and tradition. They're teaching 100% in the Cherokee language, and so they have a student base that is very interested in learning about culture and tradition, and their parents are also interested in facilitating that type of education. So that school seemed like a perfect fit for us. When it came down to a bank, we were fortunate in that we didn't have a lot of options. So there's only 2 banks that have representation on our boundary, and we knew we wanted to work with a bank that kids would see on a regular basis and that they would be able to go to whenever they wanted to make deposits. And also a bank where, as they got older, there would be services available that they would want to utilize, things like loans and mortgages and credit cards, things like that. So we picked a local bank. They do have a few branches nationwide, but they're pretty prevalent in this region, called First Citizens Bank. And it just so happens it's where Sequoia Fund also does their deposits. So we had a good relationship with the staff. And then I always like to keep in mind our third partner, which is the parents and kids, because this is the group that's actually doing the work. So we want to make sure that their needs are being met and that their goals are being met as well as a participant in this program. Next slide. So when approaching any partnership, it's essential to be prepared, and this was especially the case for us. We were working with a bank and a school, and while the employees at both of those organizations were super excited about this program, they had to get approval from other people, from their boards and from their higher-ups. So whenever I was kind of planning for this, I actually talked to our representative at the bank, and she told me that this was the #1 thing that we did that helped them the most, which was we were super prepared and we had all the details of this program planned out. So they were able to take this to their board and have it approved without too much of a conflict. And one of the things that was kind of different about this program is we were actually going to be taking deposits at the school. So the bank had to make sure that everything was cleared on their end as far as transporting money that they had received at an off-site location back to their branch. And so the idea that we had everything in order was very helpful for them. So I highly recommend that whenever you're working with partners, is know exactly what it is you're going to do and have those guidelines mapped out. And it's also a good idea at that time to define each partner's responsibilities. And we did that at this time as well. We looked at what was going to be required from the school, what was going to be required from the bank, and what was going to be required from Sequoia Fund. And we were able to take those items, and now 4 years later, we're still working on the same roles and still have the same responsibilities that we had from the beginning because we took the time to plan them out. Next step. And then I think it's super important to maintain those relationships once you've built them. So one of the things that we wanted to do right off was try to figure out a way that we could incorporate more of the Cherokee language into our program, because we were going into a school that's trying to teach children how to speak this language that is dying in our community. None of our staff is fluent. No one at the bank is fluent. So that was going to be very difficult. And the school was fine with us coming in and speaking English for this program, but we want to try to work with them as much as possible. The next slide. One of the things that we did was develop some learning tools that we could use and that the school can use in the future that sort of facilitates financial literacy and matches it up with this idea of learning the Cherokee language. So we took a bunch of terms around money and spending and buying and dollars, and we had them translated just in the school by the teachers and the elders who volunteer at the school. And we give these out to the kids, and then we created a little money match-up game so they can sort of learn these concepts in their traditional language. One of the things we also wanted to incorporate was this idea of a traditional savings, so planting and seeding and growing and talking about how our ancestors would have saved in a more traditional sense. Next. And this, I said that none of our staff speaks Cherokee, and that's the case still, but the kids actually taught us how to say $5 tomorrow or bring your $5 tomorrow, because what I do is come in the day before each deposit day and remind them. So in trying to keep with the effort of speaking Cherokee, this is Hishki Adela Sunale, which that's very roughly $5 tomorrow. It's like 5 money morning. So the kids kind of get a kick out of me struggling to say that to them. But it's a little bit of shared learning, and the kids really enjoy that component of it, of talking and kind of teaching us as well as us teaching them. Next slide. So a couple of things that I feel like make this program really work is, one, I mentioned before, the deposits that are made at the school. So the way we work this is a bank representative and a Sequoia Fund representative actually go up to the school during lunchtime. We have a table set up, we have candy, and we talk to the kids about their spending as they make their deposits. Sometimes they have deposit slips, sometimes they don't. We have everything on hand. The bank brings a big box full of stuff so they can make sure that everything is done correctly. But we wanted to make it as easy as possible for them to make the deposits, basically. But keeping with that, we also wanted to make sure they had some experience at the bank and that they knew what a bank was like and they felt comfortable there. So every year we load up the kids and we go down to the First Citizens branch that's on our boundary, and the kids make their deposits there. We take all the kids, not just the ones with the bank account, so everyone gets to see the bank. They tour the safe. They get to work the drive-through window, so it's a fun experience for them. And in this middle picture, you actually see this kid making his deposit, that's his mom in the background. So we actually have a lot of parents who turn out at these bank visits. They're very excited about seeing their kids in the bank, about helping their kids, and really just being a part of that savings experience. And the final thing that I think has made this program successful is that we are very aware of keeping regular communication with the parents, the students, and our partners. So the things that we do are provide in-person reminders of the deposit days, going up to the school, talking to the kids, but also providing the parents with a lot of update letters, letting them know how much has been saved, how many accounts are open, so that they know that the program is still active and doing well. Next slide. So just to kind of wrap up, I want to share kind of the impact that we've measured over the past 4 years. This chart here shows our total year-end savings. Every year we open accounts. The school is K-5, but in the first 3 years they were still growing. So the first year we only had K-3, the second year K-4. So every year we open about 7 new accounts. That's usually a good portion of the kindergarten class that comes on new. And you can see this as of year 4, I pulled that balance probably a month ago. The kids had saved roughly $8,400, which is up from the first year. They were just under about $4,000 of total savings. Next slide. And then here's the breakdown of contributions. So we, Sequoia Fund has contributed approximately 25% of that total savings, and that's with our seeding the new accounts and then providing the $25 for students who meet the requirements at the end of the year. And I think the real powerful number for us is that it's the students who've contributed around $7,000 to their own accounts in savings. And just to give you an idea of the size, the school probably has around 70 students, so it's a very small school. Next slide. And that's it. Shki, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hope. Questions after? Next, I'd like to introduce Fern Ori with Wisconsin Native Loan Fund.
Thank you, Stephanie. Hello, everybody. This is Fern Ori from the Wisconsin Native Loan Fund. We are a statewide Native CDFI in the state of Wisconsin, serving 11 different reservations and other urban areas as well. I just wanted to talk to you about a couple of different partnerships that have worked for us in Wisconsin. Next slide, please. So our strategic approach at the Wisconsin Native Loan Fund is, and like many Native CDFIs, is to have the dual approach of having access to capital provided with a foundation of education and resources. And with that, it develops opportunities for self-sufficiency and improving our economic conditions across Indian country all over the national scale. And we try to do this statewide, every reservation, and have loans coupled with the education as the foundation to have a successful growth of borrowers. Along with our partners in the state, we have 3 other Native CDFIs as well that all have the same foundational basis of providing services and resources. Next slide. So one of the partnerships I wanted to talk about is our group that we formed. Junia Giikindazawan means money knowledge in Ojibwe. And this group was formed back in, I want to say, 2010. And what happened with that is Wisconsin Native Loan Fund used to be a very localized CDFI in the Northwoods of Wisconsin. And we had other partners in the area that were also providing different services and educational resources to the community. We all came together and realized, why don't we work together and roll out different curricula to the community rather than everybody trying to do things on their own, and we could be more effective and efficient. So we had such a wonderful group that comprised anything from a small business technical assistance program to a tribal education department to a local bank, VITA department of the IRS, Department of Financial Literacy of Wisconsin. We had a for-profit Wisconsin Benefits Planning Group, which had a lot of probate and wills and retirement type of accounts. And then also 2 Native CDFIs in the state, and then also including from time to time Commissioner of the Office of Insurance of the state. So between all of us, we would meet monthly or biweekly over the phone and plan different workshops or different events. Our big success was lunch and learns. We do like monthly lunch and learns, usually in one reservation area like the Northwoods on the Lac du Flambeau Reservation. But we've been slowly trying to expand to other reservations to provide this type of programming. What's really nice is we base our classes during the lunch hour. It's a quick come in, grab a bite to eat, sit down, and here's our topic for this month. And we've done everything from credit counseling to learning how to interpret a credit report, basic budgeting, a little bit of homebuyer education as a kickoff to a more in-depth workshop. We've done specific things like shopping on a budget, like groceries, and how to, buy brand, shop the brands and everything else. We've done very specific things like touching on probate and wills. We've always surveyed the community to see what their interests are, what their needs are, and try to incorporate that into our schedule of classes for the year. One of the biggest hits we had was we had a couple of certified mechanics come in and teach everybody how to not buy a lemon, and that was huge. We had like 55 people in that class and request to do that again, so we've incorporated that a couple of times. So just really practical, hands-on things that we really want to make sure that the community has resources and access to folks like all of us that are involved in Junia, different things for elders, different things for youth, stuff about tax preparation, and basically just tailoring it to that community. And we'd like to really replicate this on other reservations And as our staff capacity amongst all of us grows, even amongst the partnership, we are able to get that out there to other reservations. Next slide, please. The other partnership I wanted to talk about, and one other thing to mention about the Junia group. We did win we did win a statewide Governor's Council on Financial Literacy Award for financial literacy back in 2012. And that feather in our cap was the fact that that's the first Native group of any kind that has won that type of award and had that type of exposure at a state level. So that was pretty neat, and just like another way to show the impact that we're providing as a partnership. Thanks, Stephanie. You can go back to the WEBA stuff now. So I'd like to switch gears to another effective partnership that's building and growing. I'm sure some of you have heard of Indian business alliances across the country, at least in the Midwest. There's Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Montana all have Indian business alliances. Wisconsin Indian Business Alliance has just morphed in the last couple of years from a working group that formed with the 4 Native CDFIs of the state and also a small business technical assistance program of all the tribes. And basically, we're a coalition. We realized that rather than everybody working in silos and going after similar funding sources, and we're all providing to the same target market, similar products and services, why don't we try to have a coalition together and hopefully attract larger funding sources, larger deals from state agencies and tribes even as a group, rather than just being in our separate little coves of what we do. So we formed this group a couple of years ago, and it is still in development stages, but we're already making a tremendous impact as a group. Our mission is to expand Native economic development in Wisconsin by strengthening Native-owned businesses and communities. And we are designed to increase cooperation and leverage amongst CDFIs in the state and strategic partner organizations so that we can more effectively serve American Indian businesses and other development needs across the state. Next slide, please. So WEBA, we have 4 Native CDFIs. 3 of them focus on small business lending to Natives, and another one, Wisconsin Native Loan Fund, we focus on a lot of the consumer and housing lending. By having our groups work to coordinate and leverage resources, we're able to maximize loans and training out there. We can do a lot of client referrals in between ourselves of people either in a location or a different type of product that one CDFI may not offer but another one does. And then obviously both on and off reservations as well. So we work collectively to bring millions of dollars into the state, into Indian country from different sources like federal agencies, corporations, foundations, tribes, and offering all of our continuum of loan products and services that we call. I'll have a different slide for that. But we're really trying to capture and focus on every possible need out there in the affordable financing, growth for Indian businesses, and of course the technical assistance and education that goes behind all that for our Natives across the state. And then of course another reason we formed this EBA was to attract those larger dollars by showing this innovative collective group of a partnership of a coalition of Native CDFIs all in the state with the same target market. So we're working together to attract a larger funding source where these funders realize that they can get more bang for their buck by investing in an alliance versus individual organizations. Next slide, please. This is the continuum of products and services I referred to. Basically what we did is take all of the organizations involved in WEBA and list out every type of product or service that we all provide and indicate everything that each of our service or our organizations individually and collectively provide. So there's like a snapshot, and you can see we're offering everything from post-loan TA, pre-loan readiness, classrooms, workshops, financial literacy, consumer credit information, home buyer education. We're doing anything from consumer loans to auto loans to home loans, and of course the micro enterprise loans, all the way up to larger business lending, along with anything regarding housing like home improvement and down payment assistance. And then of course even something unique like VITA tax services. So this to me is a real snapshot of the resources that are in Indian country within our state that we really want to try to educate tribal members across the state and tribal leadership so they know the resources that are being provided in their communities and the depth of what we're offering. Next slide. Just to give you a little bit of an example, this is some average annual impacts. This is actually 2015's information. So nearly 300 clients received one-on-one readiness and capacity building for technical assistance. We've had over 450 classroom participants, anything ranging from credit counseling, finance, budgeting, business accounting, marketing, contract procurement, etc. Just really unique, very specific courses based on that need out there. And then nearly $2 million in loan deployment. You can see 1.25 in small business capital, creating businesses, creating jobs, and also retaining jobs. And then a little over $500,000 in consumer loans, serving over 150 families, providing them with things like down payment assistance, debt consolidation, home improvement, etc. And I believe the 2016 numbers are $2.5 million in loan deployment, or maybe towards $3 million, as I recall. But this is just a sample snapshot of how these partnerships and coalitions really build that impact and attract all the more tribal attention and resources so they can see the plethora of stuff out there for tribes to promote for their tribal citizens, along with funders and investors to possibly want to invest or look at where is this impact really being deployed. And another thing too that WEBA has done is same thing like the Junia Giikindazawan. Instead of each of us providing these specific trainings on different reservations, now we're working together and we have a schedule where we say, okay, these two groups are putting on this workshop on this reservation, and we have a monthly schedule that we're looking at of we're trying to hit every tribe in Wisconsin with different topics that everybody needs. Financial education is getting more and more increasingly needed everywhere, and WEBA has already shown the impact and just continues to have some momentum going, and all the tribes are realizing what a great resource we provide. And another one quick thing I'd like to mention about WEBA also is that, and I think maybe Stephanie can provide a link at some point, Wisconsin Indian Business Alliance was listed in a case study through the CDFI Funds Resource Library, and it talks about the background and how we were created and what we are trying to do. And so that's another wonderful way to see a partnership that's working and working well, in a way that you can do this in your own communities across Indian country. I think that's the last slide, Stephanie.
Yes, thank you, Fern. I will definitely provide a link in our follow-up email that links to that case study. So thank you so much, and I'll just briefly cover our latest publication, and then we can have questions for our amazing presenters. So I know I have questions. Bonjour, Stephanie Cote and Dijitkas. Hello, my name is Stephanie Cote. I am the Communications Manager here at First Nations Awista Corporation, and I'm so delighted to share with you our latest publication, The Power of Partnerships, a look at organizational partnerships in Native communities and the Native CDFI industry. A copy is in the handout section. I will also be forwarding a copy in the follow-up email, and it can also be downloaded off our website in the online help desk section. So First Nations Awista Corporation conducted a survey of tribal entities in March of 2015. The survey was conducted to understand the need for collaborations and best practices around engaging in partnerships within Indian country. We found this particular issue crucial as a great number of our tribal communities often work with scarce resources and rely on partnerships to maximize these resources. Awista drew upon its institutional records and mailing lists to disseminate its survey, and the survey produced 204 usable responses. Of these respondents, 93% were Native entities or serving tribal communities. And next, to get everyone involved in the webinar, I just wanted to launch a few polls that were addressed in our publication. So if you just take a few moments to answer the poll, where do you serve? And the options are locally, regionally, statewide, nationally, or just within the tribe. I'll give everyone just a few moments to cast their last vote. And it looks like we have 55% served within the tribe, 18% nationally, and then 9% locally, regionally, and statewide. So back to the demographics. What we found in the survey was that the respondents had predominantly partnered, that the largest subsection of respondents represented tribal programs. And the demographic reach of the survey participants was largely restricted to serving their respective tribal communities, which you guys had indicated as well, while the remaining participants serve local, regional, state, and national populations. There are two larger age categories of the survey respondents, 1 to 5 years and greater than 10 years. Only 6% of the respondents were less than 1 year old, and 16% were 5 to 10 years old. And just a transition, I'll launch another poll here. So how many partnerships do you currently have? Give everyone just a few moments here to cast their last votes. And it looks like we have 33% at none, 33% 1 to 3, 17 4 to 7, and 17 at more than 12 partnerships. That's awesome. That's a lot of partnerships. So in the survey, the vast majority of organizations had engaged in 4 to 7 partnerships over the last 6 months and had very strong partnerships. The survey respondents had also predominantly partnered with non-native nonprofits. One highlight was found in comparing the age of the organization with the number of current partnerships. The younger organizations did not engage in partnerships or had engaged in 1 to 3 partnerships, where the organizations 1 to 10 years old had 4 to 7 partnerships. The organizations over 10 years of age had a range of partnerships. It appears that it takes time for organizations to build partnerships, but as time goes on, the more mature organizations become increasingly self-sufficient, shedding the least useful partnerships. In speaking with different Native CDFIs with successful partnerships, the strongest recommendation for partnerships was to enter with trust and respect to build the foundation of a long-term relationship. Practitioners' advice for maintaining healthy partnerships centered around 3 key concepts: continuous, transparent communication between partners, the alignment of mission and values of both organizations, and a clear definition of roles with accountability in those roles for both partners. As we see in the graph presented in the slide, the partnerships perceived as very good by surveyed respondents were those that entered into relationships with the goal of creating a unified voice, expanding services, and addressing community needs. However, we found organizations that went with the goals of administrative efficiency and combining financial resources were less successful. The top concerns with partnerships that resulted in a lower quality rating were the partnering organization's capacity to deliver and staff turnover. However, organizations that went in concerned about the lack of trust between the partnerships were surprisingly able to flourish if they had a common mission. Practitioners warned that entering into collaborations with the sole intent of attaining grant funding does not result in fruitful relationships. So the bottom line is our intentions matter. So I'll launch our last poll here. And we'll find out, who do you normally partner with? Do you typically partner with Native organizations, non-Native, or both? And this is an anonymous poll, so feel free to answer whatever fits. I'll just wait a few more seconds. Cast your last votes. And it looks like the majority of people, 90%, partner with both types of entities. And back to the findings, the finding in the research was that organizations partnered with Native and non-Native organizations alike. The interesting part of this piece was that the research showed that Native and non-Native partnerships were perceived as good partnerships overall. The fact that the partner was Native or non-Native did not hold bearing on whether the relationship was going to be good or bad. In conclusion, we can see that there is a need to develop partnerships within the Native CDFI industry and throughout Indian country. In developing these collaborations, it is important to come together with trust, respect, and a common interest and mission. Partnerships should not be an end to a mean, but a sustainable, long-term relationship in developing healthy, vibrant communities. Our presenting organizations embody these types of partnerships, as highlighted in our report. So next, I would like to open it up to discussion. If anyone has a question, please feel free to use the question and answer feature of the webinar platform. Or feel free to raise your hand and I can unmute you. Okay, in the follow-up email, I will give everyone a chance, our contact information. So if something comes to mind after the fact, please feel free to reach out to us. And Fern and Hope, thank you so much for joining us. I'm trying to think of questions, but your presentations were very well formulated. I guess, Hope, a question I would have for you would be, what source of funding do you use for the IDA account for children's, or sorry, program? Is there
so the first year we received a statewide community foundation grant, and it was very small. It was just for about $1,500. It was just enough to seed all the accounts and do the matches at the end. The rest we have just been self-funding internally because it's not actually a lot of money at the end of the year. As you saw, we probably only put about $2,500 into student accounts. It's mainly in our staff time and then resources. We do little things like have an ice cream party for the kids and stuff, but we just consider that community outreach. So not a lot of funding.
Oh, that's great. With you have you accomplish a lot, and it gets people banked. And Fern, I was just wondering, for your Lunch and Learn, do you reach out to community members to present on the various topics? And and with WEBA and utilizing the Lunch and Learn platform, have they been successful in implementing it in their various regions?
So we definitely do use community members or other subject matter experts depending on the topic that we're trying to teach on. And what's cool is we do a lot of the classes based on surveying our participants about what types of subjects they would like presented. So that's how we did like the mechanic thing and learning about not to buy a lemon, and how we've gotten other agencies involved in the JUNIA process, where we can talk about very specific topics like how to create a will, where do you start with probate, even land leasing issues, bringing in land management staff. So different topics, different experts on each subject. And as far as WEBA is concerned, we are trying to mimic a lot of that on different reservations as a group and do the same type of process and method where we get in there and provide a course or a lunch and learn topic and utilize local people that have that expertise. And right now we're starting with quarterly things on different reservations, and it's going to expand to be a monthly occurrence. So yeah, lots of good stuff going on.
Great. So I have a question from for Fern. Do you track the Lunch and Learn participants' movement or participation in WEBA services that match?
That's a great question and a great idea. We have not matched those up yet, but right now we definitely do the surveying, and we also keep track of the participants and their contact information. But I think that's a wonderful idea. We should explore that, where we look at both groups and what's going on and match that up and see where we can capitalize on overlap.
And we had another question for the report. What other reporting partnership impacts do you use in addition to rating from your survey? So unfortunately, our report was just based on the survey that was conducted in March of 2015. It was open for a few months, and then we conducted individual interviews regarding partnerships. So just for that report, it's limited, but if you have any other ideas on how to measure impact with partnerships, I would love to hear that. I'll be attaching the Opportunity Finance Network CDFI collaboration report that just came out a few months ago, which has a little more insight into collaborations that are working for CDFIs, but not native CDFIs in particular. But I'll forward all my contact information, and I'm happy to hear any ideas that anyone has around impact measurement. So. And does anyone have any additional questions? Okay. Well, if that's all. really want to say, please like all of our organizations on Facebook. We post regularly. You can follow us on Twitter. I know Elisa's on it, and our newsletters. Then you can find out more on what we're doing with our various collaborations. I really want to say thank you so much for Fern and Hope for presenting today. They're amazing collaborations that you're conducting in your areas, and hopefully your models can be replicated across the country. So sincerely, thank you. And we look forward to everyone joining us Thursday. We have an investment tools webinar at 12 p.m. Mountain Time. So thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to chatting with you soon. Miigwech.